We understand the president is speaking at the White House. We're going to let this one go here, wrap this up, and go directly to President Obama.
Great friends and partners, President Calderon of Mexico and Prime Minister Harper of Canada. Now, I've worked with Stephen and Felipe on many occasions. We joined our international partners from APEC to the G20. From our last summit in Guadalajara, we remember Felipe's hospitality and that of the Mexican people, including some very good mariachi and
Mexican
some tequila, if I'm not mistaken. I can't reciprocate the music, but Felipe, Stephen and I are proud to welcome you.
Thank you.
Here today. Between us, we represent nearly 500 million citizens. From Nunavut in the Canadian North to Chiapas in southern Mexico. In between, the diversity of our peoples and cultures is extraordinary. But wherever they live, they wake up every day with similar hopes: to provide for their families, to be safe in their communities, to give their children a better life. And in each of our countries, the daily lives of our citizens are shaped profoundly by what happens in the other two, and that's why we're here. Today, we focused on our highest priority, creating jobs and opportunity for our people. In the United States, our businesses have created nearly 4 million new jobs. Confidence is up and the economy is getting stronger. But with lots of folks still struggling to find work and pay the bills, we are doing everything we can to speed up the recovery, and that includes boosting trade with our two largest economic partners. As president, I've made it a priority to increase our exports, and I'm pleased that our exports to Canada and Mexico are growing faster than our exports to the rest of the world. In fact, last year, trade in goods with our two neighbors surpassed $1 trillion for the first time ever. This trade supports some 2.5 million American jobs, and I want more trade supporting even more jobs in the future. So today, Prime Minister Harper led us in a very good discussion about how our three countries can improve our competitiveness. We agreed to continue making our borders more efficient and more secure, so it's faster and cheaper to travel and trade. We're expanding cooperation to create clean energy jobs and combat climate change, an area in which President Calderon and Mexico have been a real leader. I'm pleased to announce that our three nations are launching a new effort to get rid of outdated regulations that stifle job creation. Here in the United States, our efforts to cut red tape and ensure smart regulations will help achieve savings and benefits to businesses, consumers, and our country of more than $100 billion. And we're already working to streamline and coordinate regulations with Canada and Mexico on a bilateral basis. So now our three nations are going to sit down together, go through the books, and simplify and eliminate more regulations that will make our joint economies stronger. This is especially important, by the way, for our small and medium-sized businesses, which, when they start exporting, often start with Mexico and Canada. So this is going to help create jobs, and it's going to keep us on track to meet my goal of doubling U.S. exports. More broadly, I reiterated my commitment to comprehensive immigration reform, which would be good for workers and good for business. I'm pleased that Canada and Mexico have also expressed an interest in joining the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Consultations with our TPP partners are now underway on how new members can meet the high standards of this trade agreement, which could be a real model for the world. And I very much appreciated President Calderon updating us on preparations for the next G20 summit, which he will be hosting in June. Our other major focus today was the security that our citizens deserve. Criminal gangs and narco-traffickers pose a threat to each of our nations, and each of our nations has a responsibility to meet that threat. In Mexico, President Calderon has shown great courage in standing up to the traffickers and cartels, and we've sped up the delivery of equipment and assistance to support those efforts. Here in the United States, we've increased cooperation on our southern border and dedicated new resources to reducing the southbound flow of money and guns, and to reduce the demand for drugs in the United States, which helped to fuel this crisis. And today, each of us reaffirmed our commitment to meeting this challenge together because that's the only way that we're going to succeed. Beyond our borders, these cartels and traffickers pose an extraordinary threat to our Central American neighbors. So we're teaming up. Defense ministers from our three countries met last week as a group for the first time ever, and we're going to be coordinating our efforts more closely than ever, especially when it comes to supporting Central America's new strategy on citizen security, which will be discussed at the Summit of the Americas in Colombia next week. So again, I want to thank Stephen and Felipe for being here. When I came to office, I pledged to seek new partnerships with our friends in the Americas, a relationship of equality and shared responsibility built on mutual interest and mutual respect. That's what we've done. And it would have been possible without the leadership and sense of purpose that these two outstanding leaders have brought to all our efforts, including our efforts today. As a result, I believe our nations and our citizens will be more secure, more prosperous, and in a better position to give their children the lives that they deserve. So with that, let me turn it over to President Calderon.
Thank you, President Obama. Excelentísimo señor Presidente Barack Obama, Presidente de los Estados Unidos.
Your Excellency, Mr. Barack Obama, President of the United States of America, Right Honorable Stephen Harper, Prime Minister of Canada, ladies and gentlemen of the press, Mr. Ambassadors, legislators, friends. First of all, I would like to thank President Barack Obama for his extraordinary hospitality and that of his government in hosting this summit of the leaders of North America. And briefly, I would also like to express on behalf of the government of Mexico, the people of Mexico, my family, and my own behalf, my most sincere sympathies to the family and relatives of former President Miguel de la Madrid Hurtado for his lamentable death yesterday. Tomorrow, we will be rendering homage to him in Mexico. The reasons for which we are here today at this summit of the North American leaders with President Barack Obama and the Prime Minister of Canada, we've come through a workday that has been very fruitful and fluid with an exchange of opinions and progress to the benefit of our respective citizens. I'm also very thankful to my two colleagues for the openness with which we have broached some very complex items on our working agenda. I recognize and value their enormous commitment to our common region. The leaders of North America share a vision of a strong, solidary, safe, competitive region that is able to successfully face head-on the challenges of today. We agree that our common challenges can only be faced together, and therein lays the importance of having dialogue, strong dialogue amongst our three countries. The data that President Obama has just given us is very important that our trade has exceeded $1 trillion for the first time. And I think that is not separate from a reality that has to be underscored. In this very complex world full of economic problems and severe crises, Canada, the United States, and Mexico are three countries that are growing right now and generating jobs today. And that growth and those millions of jobs, many of them have to do precisely with the greatest trade exchanges that we have ever seen amongst these great nations. I would say that the potential of North America tied to these three countries is such that within our own nations we have a great deal to do to make the most of these opportunities for greater exchanges amongst our peoples. As we've mentioned today, we have progressed on various fronts. For instance, we've advanced on the deregulation in our countries, in our own countries, as well as amongst our countries. We have progressed as well in harmonization of certain standards that facilitate trade. We've also progressed, in our case, on the bilateral relationship in border infrastructure, and all of this has led, of course, to the benefit of Canadian, Mexican, and American families. Another line of ideas, I would also say that the three nations have renewed their decision to strengthen cooperation at the international level, particularly in issues as sensitive as the security of our citizens. We have reiterated the values upon which our societies were founded: democracy, liberty, justice, the respect for human rights, and today the political dialogue amongst us is perhaps stronger than ever. We have renewed certain principles of our existence and of our challenges. The principle of shared responsibility, the exchange of information, and especially the strengthening of our institutions that has to be the guide of our cooperation. Clearly, I expressed to President Obama and to Prime Minister Harper that the fight that Mexico is experiencing for a safer North America also requires a strengthening of national actions, amongst other things, to stop the traffic of weapons, to combat with greater strength money laundering, and, of course, to reduce the demand for drugs that strengthens criminal organizations. I also expressed to President Obama and to Prime Minister Harper that Mexico recognizes that the commitment that they have undertaken to progress along those lines. It's also necessary to strengthen the regional security focus. And in order to do this, we need to include our neighbors and Central American partners who are also facing serious problems and who need our solidarity. The three countries have agreed to establish a joint dialogue mechanism with the Central American Integration System, the SICA, in support of the efforts undertaken by Central American nations to fight organized crime and in favor of regional security that benefits us all. Of course, in this meeting, we have broached the topic of the regional economy. The leaders of North America agree that the United States, Canada, and Mexico must continue to delve deeper into our successful economic relationship so as to generate more jobs and greater well-being in all three countries. Our governments recognize that it is absolutely necessary to continue to fully comply with the NAFTA, as well as to explore new means of strengthening regional competitiveness. And I am convinced that if we work together, we will become much more competitive than many areas of the world that we are competing with today. Mexico's position is that the solution to the complex economic situation experienced by the world today is not a return to protectionist practices that only isolate countries, reduce competitiveness of economies, and send investment scurrying, but that part of the problem and part of the investment that we need to see in the world economy is to see it delving deeper into our economies and making the most of our advantages that show our economic complementarity in terms of investment, labor, technologies, natural resources, and only then will we be able to have successful in a world that competes ferociously by regions. The three countries have renewed our commitment to broaden the supply chains of the region, that it will be even more interconnected, supporting especially the small and medium-scale companies. Mexican exports to the world represent 37% of have 37% of American content. In other words, so American exports are American exports, and they generate millions of jobs for the region. And in that lays the need to work even more in this region and on a clear trilateral deregulation, for instance, in nanomaterials and emissions standards for some vehicles. Today, we also agreed to work in a coordinated fashion on actions that we will be adopting to modernize infrastructure and for border management. After 10 years, the last 2 years, we've seen 3 new border crossing areas between Mexico and the United States after 10 years of not having seen one new route. And we continue to work in a coordinated fashion to make our border more dynamic so that it's a border of opportunities for progress on both sides of that border. Tomorrow, here in Washington, our ministers of economy and of trade will be meeting within the framework of the Free Trade Commission of the NAFTA. So